Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us on our session this afternoon. Having a few technical issues, surprise, surprise, in this new modern world. I am, however, delighted to be initially joined in our panel by my two friends from across the pond. I have Jack Ezon, who is the founder, managing partner of Embark Beyond, who I think is in Brooklyn. Is that correct? Jack, are you
Yes.
there? Yes, you're in Brooklyn. Hello. And Norman Howe, who
Hi.
is the founder of Howe Co, who is somewhere in, I'm going to say this correctly, I think, Toronto.
Toronto. Yeah, you got to kind of roll it together. Toronto.
Toronto, okay. We are also waiting for Tom Barber, who ironically is in the UK, but hasn't quite joined us yet, but we will crack on anyway. So the premise for this session is ideas in crisis, coping with the new normal in luxury travel. And we're going to try and look at how some businesses are adapting to cope with this new way of travel planning, customer patterns as a result of the crisis, and whether we should be focusing on different kinds of business models and ideas for the future, mindful of trends emerging from this period to provide innovative ideas that keep our clients interested. So, Jack, I'm going to start with you. First question. And it'll be interesting to hear from you and your obviously vast experience as a luxury travel advisor, but you do have a quite different business model now. So can you tell us a little bit about Embark, why it's a bit different, and how it had been going before all this craziness happened?
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah, we actually started last March. So this March 1st, we celebrated our first anniversary 11 days before we had to shut our office. But Embark, Embark set up like a professional service firm because our belief is that we as advisors have to operate as others, like law firms. And so we are set up almost to emulate a law firm where everybody who works for the company has an opportunity to be an owner in the company, to be a partner, and it's a partnership model. We also have partners that don't necessarily just do travel. For example, Master Connections, which is one of the premier training companies that trains every Aman, every Four Seasons, and built the Ritz-Carlton training program, is a partner in our company. Because we were set up. Travel's not in our name to not just do travel, but to help answer our customers' needs and become a real trusted advisor for their lifestyle. And travel, if you think about it, is just one word in the luxury lifestyle of that customer. And we need to talk to them on a more holistic level.
Okay. And so how have you flipped that in the current situation? I assume there's very little international travel
Yeah.
for your clients in the US. So what have you been working on instead?
So it was so interesting because it actually accelerated our concept. I mean, we have been doing so many things that don't necessarily involve travel, but things we may have done while people were traveling. For example, this summer we did phenomenally with a destination summer camp that ended up morphing into doing camps, private camps, into about 50, just over 50 different clients' homes for about 10 weeks this whole summer. We just launched a homeschool program in partnership with Harvard University, where we can put teachers in people's homes, but also we bring a global perspective. We have about 50, 60 hotels now that curated content that was specific to their area, which Harvard helped layer in educational components. So, for example, a pastry making course from Paris that layers in math problems, or Borgo Ignazio in Italy has an Italian course that layers in paper mache making with a local child. We have jewelry making from the Sofitel, we have Santa Clara and Cartagena. I mean, so many things. Sangeeta even is doing a whole really cool sustainability course for kids that's very interactive. And so, look, we're
Wow.
bringing the world to you. We just
Yeah.
launched Embark Brokerage, which is like a real estate brokerage company. We have a network of brokers because people wanted to stay long term, but didn't necessarily want to stay in a hotel. And so now we're helping people find alternate homes.
Wow. Yeah.
Just
You've
some
really
examples of our crazy
Yeah,
things.
you've been keeping very busy, branching out significantly. I'll come back to you about
Yeah.
some of those ideas a bit later on. I think we've now got Tom, possibly now just Tom in voice with a
Hello.
Hello, Tom from Beyond.
Sorry about that.
Hi.
Severe case of technophobia. I suspect it must be my end, but anyway, hi everyone.
Oh, well, thank you for persevering with us. And the voice from beyond will now answer this question. Jack was just telling us about his concept in how he doesn't have the word travel in his company name. And it's actually been a good thing because he's expanded much out beyond travel in real estate and a bit of education and, trying to fulfill clients' needs, whatever that might be. Do you agree to an extent that, a luxury travel brand has to be much more present in their clients' sphere of life, their general lifestyle, especially now?
Absolutely. I caught the last bit of what Jack was saying, and I completely agree that a high-touch travel company needs to be up there with a financial advisor or their lawyer or attorney. Absolutely, we should be as important as that, and be able to predict they're going to want before the client even necessarily knows that they're going to want it. I think it's very, very important that you have an ever evolving and highly detailed profile on all your clients, so you know exactly what they want, and if they're dealing with different consultants each time, they can refer to the detail of what it is they like, what they don't like, and that sort of thing. But actually, that's almost more important is what they don't like and what won't interest them. So you just kind of cut straight to the chase, and they can feel pretty comfortable knowing that you know what they like.
Yeah, and that you're a part of their life. I think another thing that Jack will perhaps talk about later on is art and understanding what people's art interests are. Not that a travel consultant should suddenly become an art dealer, but at least having that kind of portfolio information about your client is very interesting. And just to flip it a little bit, while people aren't or can't travel at the moment, Tom, how have you been approaching marketing and sort of keeping in touch with people and whether it's PR or marketing or surveys, how have you kept original travel out there?
I think it's been very interesting exercise, actually, knowing when to talk and when to shut up. We decided very early on that PR would be something we carried on, and we have sent a couple of journalists away on trips, relatively short haul, Turkey, Italy, while they were on the green list, so that these stories will come out, hopefully well timed when suddenly everyone can start traveling again. We since then have done a lot of emailing and a couple of surveys just to kind of get a flavour. But we sent out the very first email we sent after the government locked everyone down and said no going anywhere, was to say thank you, because about a week later I spoke to several of the consultants and they all said the same thing, which is that they'd had clients of ours going, "Are you okay? How's it going? God, we feel so sorry for you." That was just extraordinary. Yeah, I guess that's exactly what you would hope for from good relationships with one's clients. But they were so nice. We just thought, well, listen, we've got to say thank you. So that was the very first email we sent out. And then there's been a series of emails since, just keeping everyone on top of which countries are on the naughty step, which are off the thing, because it has been fairly bewildering at times. And we did one thing where we felt we needed to actually be positive and give something, and we did we spoke to some of our favorite partner brands, got a whole bunch of raffle prizes together, and then NHS workers, and then doled out a whole bunch of really lovely things, including for the main winner an all expenses to Grenada. So that felt nice.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that social responsibility of things happening, and certainly in the UK, I'm sure it's been the same in lots of places. Hotels giving out plenty of room nights and opportunities to key workers to go and stay and just feel like we appreciate them, of course. Norman, I'm going to turn to you now. You've run and turned around several luxury travel businesses. What do you think are some of the kind of things that were happening already, perhaps from the operational side of things in legacy businesses that may have been accelerated as a result of the crisis?
Well, I think pre-pandemic there was a structural shift happening, from group travel to private travel. The new generation of travelers less willing to travel with random strangers. They want their experiences crafted to their specific needs. And this desire for privacy and control now is a compelling health element to it because strangers are dangerous. So this trend only is going to accelerate. I think pre-pandemic there was a kind of disintermediation of tour operators happening as travel agents like Jack reinvent themselves as travel designers and start working more directly with DMCs. And I think after the kind of carnage of COVID, the appetite for using trusted advisors and particularly trusted kind of advocates is only going to increase. Finally, I'd say a lot of companies pre-pandemic were looking to deleverage risk, and they were moving fixed overhead costs into variable operating costs. So moving guides to ICs, outsourcing to DMCs, building out IC performance-driven platforms and sales and planning.
Yeah, I would just said the ICs, not a term we use that often in the UK, but we're talking about independent contractors, right?
Contractors,
Yeah. And with that in mind, actually, and those kind of guys would obviously be incredibly loyal to the companies that they were working for, but perhaps could have been the first people to suffer during, when companies come to look at the bottom line. But it's so hard to balance that, keeping your people, because that's what's so important to you as a luxury brand, and going into this perhaps, hunkering down or even hibernation process. How important is it going to be for people to keep their talent?
Well, I think massively, and that's, I think, Jack's whole model in a way is kind of premised on that. I think, the upside of the deleveraging is it kind of worked, and the third parties and ICs bore the brunt of a lot of COVID impact. But the downside is these people aren't feeling so loyal or loved anymore. And I think travel expertise matters hugely in the game, and whoever can show them the most love is going to win the battle, and they're going to be very mobile post-COVID.
We've certainly seen in the UK lots of,
if I may, I think it's been really challenging to keep the morale up, because while business is coming in, it's much harder to close that business. And once that business is closed, it often cancels. And it's really been challenging to keep the morale up. The other challenge, as I think Norman was talking about, is keeping people engaged and interested with that environment, and you have to get creative.
You mean keeping your guys, your colleagues engaged and upbeat, or customers? Both, probably. Yeah. Tom, how have you changed your service proposition? I mean, you mentioned the bewildering level of information that's out there. I mean, is there a new where to go hotline now, or Tom, are you looking at more video consultations with clients? How have you changed things around in teams to deal with this?
I think the key initiative is pretty obvious, but there is a great big button on the site that says, "Where can I go on holiday now?" And that is an ever-changing list of destinations, and it's fairly sparse at the moment, as you can imagine, because it's a handful. So we're now, it started off as a whole bunch of shiny countries, and now it's regions within countries, because they're the only places you can be. But that has to be absolutely spot on and up to date, obviously, and we do that every day. And then there's another page we've set up called Coronavirus Confidence, and I think this is the most important. We may talk about this later. Clients have a lot of reasons not to travel at the moment, and it's our job as travel companies to explain why that's a valid reason, that one might not be so much, and this is why not, and to come up with answers to some of the concerns. So whether it's a new insurance policy that has COVID flexibility built into it, or a new flexibility pledge, I know for a fact we're not alone in this, but we know that people are going to want to cancel on a whim right up as soon as they can, and okay, it's 30 days beforehand, but you don't need to give us a reason. You can just go, yeah, I'm not feeling this. Change the dates to later in the year. Doesn't even need to be the same destination. And that's minimum requirement stuff.
Yeah, as you said, it is minimum requirement now, isn't it? Flexibility, decent insurance, don't I need a test, all that sort of information just has to be ready for a client just to have as soon as they need it. Let's talk about some of the creative things you have been able to do for clients during this ridiculous time, and coming up with some sort of creative travel and trip solutions. I think, Tom, you sort of looked at more slow travel and trains, and what have been some of your highlights of planning some trips during all of this?
Well, if you could see me here, I'm putting our think piece from January this year, which is called 2020 Vision. And I'm looking through it, and some of it's pretty ironic now, which is one of the hot destinations to go to this year was going to be China. So maybe we scratch that one. But a lot of it really stands up. So we talked a lot about train-only itineraries from the UK, road trips using the Channel Tunnel, the concept of under-tourism. So we're channeling people to places that are every bit as amazing as those drowning under a sea of tourists. Our concept of philantourism, which is all about, it's not as big a commitment as voluntourism, but it's choosing a destination specifically because it's had a rough ride, so a terrorist attack or a natural disaster like the Caribbean, or now all of these places that are heavily reliant on tourism that are stuffed by coronavirus. So there's a lot of things that we already were planning and bigging up that we're just going to double down on them.
Yeah, makes sense. Jack, back to you to talk about some of the ideas that you mentioned earlier. I find the idea fascinating that you set up 50 plus camps in people's backyards. They couldn't travel, so you took the travel to them. I mean, how this, the mind boggles. How has this happened?
Yeah, look, we started doing a destination summer camps. We were going to send counselors. We hired a camp director because all these camps closed to send counselors to hotels with people. And as the world started to close up again in July, people had asked us if we could just bring it to their backyard, and we saw an opportunity. Same with the schools. And we actually just launched something called Daycations to talk about what Tom was referring to, is people having a lot of caution and hesitation. We believe taking the first step is the hardest. Once you get out there and you see it's not so bad, you'll do more and more and more. And we've seen that. So we just launched this concept called Daycations, where you don't have to stay in a hotel overnight, private jet day trips for under $5,000, up to 8 people. You get on a plane, you can go somewhere an hour or two away, have a beautiful lunch, like we have one catered by Danielle Boulud, hiking in the Berkshires. We have a 3-star Michelin restaurant, the newest, hottest restaurant in the US, in West Virginia, a beautiful dinner, and some really great day trips that we're seeing people taking. And I believe once they take that, they'll be more apt and comfortable to take the next step.
Wow, that's certainly a vacation to be remembered. And on the opposite side to that, as you mentioned, you've had long stays, right? You've been planning some really long stays for people.
Yeah, we created an Embark Longer, which is mini leases at hotels, so 1 to 6 months. We've included things that we thought customers wanted, like laundry and parking and a butler. And that's done so well, but we also just found a new opportunity where people, again, want to rent a home. They don't necessarily want to be in a hotel. They want more isolation. So we created a broker network across our country to be able to monetize on our clients wanting to find a second home or a temporary rental for a season.
Wow, amazing. Norman. Yeah, exactly. Think of an opportunity and just go for it and see what sticks. Norman, you must have had travel companies come to you, or you've been noticing some kind of innovative things happening out there. I'm sure nobody really wants to would start a luxury travel business at the moment, or maybe they would. What would a luxury travel business look like right now, or what do you think it would look like right now?
Well, again, as we talked about, I mean, I'd shift. Everyone's shifting the resources into private custom travel for reasons we already kind of talked about. So that's, I think, what's going on in that space. If I was in the group travel business, I'd probably look at my operating platform, because I think the math is going to change. So if I used to make money at 15, I'm going to have to figure out how to make money at 5. That's going to be a challenge. Geographically, I think we've all seen that shift to the domestic travel space. But I don't know, if you don't have the infrastructure, I'd probably consider hibernating. I think that's a viable option for a lot of people. And speaking of which, strategically, I'd focus on having enough cash for the next 6 to 8 months to survive with minimal revenue. And if you don't have the cash, I'd start getting potential investors and buyers in discussions now to avoid running out of runway. I think the next 12 months, and sadly, there's going to be a lot of either consolidation or failure, and I'd rather consolidate than fail.
Yeah, of course. No one would want to see a much loved, their passion, their dream
Yep.
company just disappear after all their hard
Yeah,
work.
the
Of
trouble
course.
that I'm seeing with consolidating,
Yeah. Go ahead, Jack.
I,
Oh.
the struggle I'm seeing with consolidating is determining a price.
Mm.
There's
Yeah.
the old way we do it is look at someone's profitability, EBITDA, and have a multiple on that, and it's kind of irrelevant right now. And so most people are thinking about some kind of multiple of money that you make going forward. But in the marketplace, you've seen such little consolidation because there's been no precedent on what
Yeah.
that looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I think we're talking to, hoteliers, well, people in the hotel world. Obviously, before there was quite an appetite to invest in hotels, but for the moment, everyone's just kind of thinking, oh, let's just see how this kind of pans out. But one highlight is villas, which has been a lifeline for a lot of people over this time. And Norman, you are actually interim CEO with Hosted Villas. What's been the sort of modus operandi for them, and have they done well out of this, and how have you advised them on to continue being a strong and appealing business?
I think, well, again, as we talked about, it's the one place where there are signs of life because you can have the kind of control and privacy that I think is just inherently attractive in this environment. And so what we're doing is we're, like in a lot of people, I think, extending that bubble of privacy and control as much as possible. So we have a partnership with ExoJet where you can take a private jet now to your location. In location, we've got a much more robust series of private services, and people can opt in and out of those services. They can have insularity and isolation, or they can have engagement. So I think that's all catering to it. We're seeing lots of domestic stuff for sure, which is an interesting scramble because we don't have a big domestic portfolio. And as Jack's saying, lots of sort of people moving their households for 2 to 3 months to sort of take up residence somewhere, or doing the Barbados, sort of nomadic passport or whatever, that sort of stuff. So that's interesting. One of the challenges is a lot of the homeowners are now wanting to spend more time in their
Yeah.
homes because they want to be in them. So the availability is an interesting challenge too. So it's a scramble. I think that to the point these guys made earlier, though, even though we're getting lots of kind of great, rich organic leads, closing is still hard because people are so uncomfortable committing in this environment of instability. So we're trying to
And once you
remove
close,
all the barriers.
once you close, you don't know if it's going to cancel because where cancellation was like 8%, now it's over 50.
Yeah, I think again, people either want to book way out, in which case they don't want to put money at risk, or they want to book next week, in which case availability is a nightmare. So you're kind of caught betwixt and between this sort of challenge.
Yeah, and there's a whole issue of course, around quarantine. I was recently quarantined for 2 weeks, did not bother me. I live on my own in my kitchen all the time anyway. So, for me, it wasn't an issue. And I think there's a split sort of, decision really. Obviously, if families have children, then of course it's not going to be an option for them, but maybe some people can quarantine fairly comfortably. Tom, what's the vibe you're getting from your clients as to whether, I'm sure you probably have a lot of family clients, but what's the vibe you're getting around the whole quarantine thing? Is it just too much? People won't swallow it.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Families are not into this. We've thought about certain ways we can jazz up someone's quarantine by having online tutors and that sort of thing. But it's, particularly if they're meant to be going back to school, the school's going to be extremely wary about someone having from another country. It's not a good look. To get back to something Norma just said, though, it's exactly right. Is clients either want to go now or way out. And we have someone in Grenada at the moment who booked the day before and went and actually got to the airport before the letter arrived from St. Lucia, not Grenada, before the St. Lucian government letter arrived saying, "Yep, you're free to come because you've got your test." And then there's a whole bunch of other clients who are thinking sabbaticals a year hence, and 3G, 3 generational trips, because in the diary to look forward to, frankly.
Yeah, the sabbatical ones is something I think we've spoken about before, isn't it? Of people having that chance to reflect on life, and perhaps either fortunately or unfortunately, they now have a large redundancy payout, maybe some people, or they've just decided to shift their life focus. So do you think sabbaticals could be something for next year we might see coming up more?
I think they're going to be huge. I mean, they were already very big business for us, and we'd like to think we were quite groundbreaking on it. But funny enough, back to the children thing, I think families and quarantine isn't a good look, but family and sabbatical is a good look, because increasingly now you've got online learning, as we've just been talking about, and some of our family clients, they're even taking a tutor. And we talked about this before, but I think you can learn as much in let's say a school term, doing amazing, meaningful things in fascinating destinations. Your children are going to be learning more doing that than they are in one academic term at school. I think that's absolutely undeniable, and increasing numbers of clients are understanding that.
Yeah.
April, we foresee what I'm calling a remote year, not necessarily a sabbatical. And the remote year means you're still going to be working, right? Where a sabbatical, everybody's off. You're still going to be working, but people are getting used to working remote, and it's a whole nother new mindset. What's the difference if I'm working remote this week from Berlin, next month from Buenos Aires, and 1 month from Paris? So they're going to take their kids, like Tom is saying, but I believe they're also going to want to, also, I think like what you alluded to, Tom, stay connected to work, stay connected to school, but enhance that with a new destination.
Yeah, a remote year.
That's a very good call. Funny enough, we had 2 or 3 staff members who were working abroad, and sending in fantastic blogs from Lisbon or Rome or wherever it was. It's great. It's like they were doing a kind of research trip at the same time.
Yeah.
And some people love the different time zones, because, like, think about it. I live in New York. If I'm in Paris, I have a full day until 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's kind of great.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's have a remote year. I'm up for it. Now, Norman, you one of the big businesses you were involved with for many years was Butterfield, which was very focused on activity, health, tours. Do you think that health and well-being and fitness and activity are going to be something that people start to, it's going to be an ongoing result of all this pandemic trauma that we've all been through?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there was, pre-pandemic, there was a convergence anyways around wellness, active adventure and luxury adventure, and that kind of, call it transformational space in a way. I think that may have shifted a little bit. I don't think you can underestimate the amount of, kind of emotional and mental trauma of COVID. And so I think people are going to focus on their physical and mental well-being before they go back to the kind of more virtuous pursuits of helping others or saving the world. I think that the Japanese have this wonderful concept of shinrin yoku, or forest bathing, which is where you immerse yourself in nature and allow it to wash over you and heal you. And I think that kind of remote, active, wilderness and nature-focused travel is going to be one of the places that benefits most post-COVID.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
We've seen this already. Like, we have a few small group wellness trips that have actually sold out. Shockingly, I think wellness is definitely going to accelerate in the trend for us to come back. And you know what? Wellness just means so many different things to different people. And for some, it's fitness. For some, it's meditation. For some, it's at some sort of spa treatment. But I think when you think about it, the common denominator is that it's about finding yourself. It's about perfecting yourself. It's about progressing on that journey to greatness. And travel is really the perfect platform for that, right? It begs self-discovery. It puts you in a position outside your comfort zone, outside your routine, and it helps you explore what's meaningful in your life, to reassess your direction, your focus, and create meaningful connections. And I think meaning is so much more important. We're all realizing now, right? And building connections to the people you're with, the places you go, and most importantly, to yourself.
Yeah,
I think the other thing, April, just to quickly step in, is I think you'll see more of those wellness brands getting into travel, which is an interesting, construct for the travel companies. I was doing some work with Equinox, who everyone knows about their hotel program, but they also have Equinox Explore, which is much more about the achievement-oriented active adventure side. And they've got that kind of wellness and physical achievement and risk-taking in their DNA. So they've got a very compelling proposition. I think that's going to be an interesting part of the dynamic going forward, is seeing other companies come into travel.
Yeah, which is a kind of a positive thing in a way,
Exactly.
given what we just said about some others people not necessarily feeling travel and hospitality is a space to be in.
Yep.
Tom, what other trends do you think your clients are? How do you sense their values are shifting, or their balance is shifting, or what they're sort of going to be looking for, or is it still a little bit too early to say if they've changed their outlook on life?
I think everyone's going to think much more carefully about everything they do, and travel will be no different from that. We've got this new umbrella concept that we've just launched, which is called Travel Less, Travel Better, because sustainability and, as we were hearing earlier, regenerative travel, this isn't a trend anymore. This is a fact. This is baked in. And so that will be the umbrella concept, Travel Less, Travel Better, that everything we do will sit under that. So every destination that you go to, we will give you the choice. You can stay in this chain hotel, but had you thought about staying in a community-run lodge, or getting involved in a local program, that sort of thing, where we're giving that choice. And this is not going away. I think this is going to be absolutely profound in travel for the rest of the time, and that's got to be a good thing. Everyone is much more conscious of carbon footprint and the like, hence train only itineraries, road trip instead of flights. This is absolutely fundamental stuff from now on in.
And as we were talking about in the previous session with Julia and Co, whether a travel company just needs to have this in as a baked in thing now. It's not even an option. It's the fact that this is what we do as a business. This is how we offset. And this is just a fact of how we do. I know Metropolitan Touring build it in. Lots of companies are just it's just a fact now. So perhaps to all of you, how important is it to really keep on this path of operating as sustainably, or giving clients these sustainable options? Tom, you think you include it, don't you, an offset in your?
Absolutely, every flight, but also all the ground transportation is calculated and carbon offset, both for clients and staff on their research trips. We have a foundation that is involved in tree planting programs around the world, but also other programs of education and that sort of thing. And that's been wonderful to be a part of. And I again, to your point, I think everyone's going to need that as a fundamental.
Yeah, Jack, what's the attitude in the US? Or
sadly, I still don't think it's a decision, a game changer. We do it for company morale and because we think it's the right thing to do for our team members, but our clients kind of don't care most of the time. They may care if they're going to Africa or Patagonia, they're going to be outside, but it doesn't move business, and it really, people are like, all right, cute, next. Now, maybe as more wildfires come and hurricanes,
exactly,
our people are going to wake up finally. But I also think maybe from a political standpoint, not many people, even a younger generation, are that as sophisticated and I think concerned about it as elsewhere in the world. And I think it's sad.
Okay. Norman, I'm sure north of America, where you are, things might be slightly different in terms of attitudes to these kind of things. But as a business, right, it's got to be, your positioning has to be, especially in the luxury space.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting challenge. I think it's kind of table stakes to sort of be, invested, optically in a way in sustainability and so on. But I agree with Jack a little bit. The problem is it doesn't necessarily move the needle in terms of driving sales. And so it's a delicate balancing act about how much time and energy and money you invest in it versus what the outcome is you expect to get out of it. So I think it's interesting. I do think the expectation is quite high. I think certainly in the Canadian cultural environment around, having a brand alignment with the values of our travelers when you're talking to travel companies. But again, I don't think people probe too deeply into it. So there's some companies like G Adventure is one of the great Canadian companies who I think has made that central to their proposition. I think in the luxury space, I think it's table stakes, but not a driver for business.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it's probably changes different views from wherever you are in the world around that, I guess.
I think that's very good. Sorry to interrupt, April. I think you've both made a very good point. It shouldn't be. It's not the be end for us, it's not absolutely the fundamental on which we base the company. But for me, it's about, if you give the clients the options, then they get to make the choice. That needs to be something that, if we can't offer that option to make the choice yourself and be responsible in your choices, then I think we've failed. But we're not going to be overly sanctimonious and say, if you don't do that, we're going to be aghast.
Right. Okay. What about trust? Is there something that comes up a lot? Again, probably from a UK perspective, travel industry has not necessarily come out of this with a rosy glow, because of all our issues around refunds back at the start, and still a little bit ongoing, and just generally that, as you said, that trust in actually making that first step to do something. Like, who can I see is traveling, who's out there, who can I follow? How are we going to try and rebuild trust enough that people feel confident in, number one, traveling and booking with a travel company? I'll start with you, Tom, from the UK perspective around trust.
I think we've got to be absolutely on top of the information, and it's moving fast. We need to be able to tell our clients that, for instance, this week, the new tests at Heathrow for flights coming in from Hong Kong and then Italy, we need to be absolutely explicit about whether these are working. Is this going to change anything? Quarantine, we've talked about. There's a lot of information now. IATA, of course, it's in their interest to be pushing this information out, but about how small the risk is of being infected on flights. I think it's important that people know the risk level of some of this stuff. I think we get trust by knowing what we're talking about. And I think it was Jack who made the point earlier, we should be seen to be traveling ourselves. No one's going to be traveling if we're just sitting there going, you must do this, but we're not going to. We should be out there exploring, finding new destinations, and then talking about it on social media, and then people will understand, oh, wow, that's something that we're doing now.
Yeah. Jack, what do you think around the issue of trust? Did you feel it's the same?
It's a huge issue. It's going to be the only thing that's going to get us out of it. And the problem is, in the US, there's no trust in any information, especially mainstream media right now. And that's a problem. There's trust in us, but there's also hesitation because we have such a vested interest. So what I'm finding is the feeling is trust in me, myself. I have to feel comfortable myself, or the people that I'm really close with and I know have no agenda. And what I love to try to do is, the only way we're all going to get out of this is if we all do this together as an industry. Like, I wish we could start some joint campaign that says, tell us about your first time. Tell us about your first time. It sounds cheeky, it's funny, but again, it's that first time. The first time I went to an airport, it's not so bad. The first time I flew in a plane with a mask, I survived. It's not so bad. In fact, look at the numbers. Pilots and flight attendants are not getting COVID any more, if not less, than anybody else. Tell us about your first time.
Okay, let's do it. We'll start that on we'll get it trending. and I hope it's used for the right conversation. Norman, how do you feel about trust? Is this a big issue in really getting us all back?
Yep. Yeah, totally. And it's this funny irony, I think, in a way, because on the one hand, you have to kind of counter superstition with fact. So back to these guys' point, IATA shown it's not a transmission in airlines, so get that word out on that. On the other side, you need to actually engage in the theater of cleanliness, whether it's necessary or not, because it shows you're taking travelers' anxiety seriously. So even if you're not going to get COVID from surface contact, you got to scrub and clean every surface in sight. It's this funny balancing act, but you got to figure out the anxieties that are driving the travelers and speak to them, whether it's truth or whether it's actually, like I said, kind of superstition or misperception.
Right, like taking temperature.
Yeah, exactly.
And those UV things.
I know. It's like, really? Yep.
Yeah, well, as we've said in a couple of other sessions, we are all getting used to these things in our daily lives, the temperature checks, the hand sanitizer. You leave your house, I got my bank card, my sanitizer, and my mask, so we're all getting used to it. But as you say, it's a case of, and also the balance between not kind of, making it look quite scary and showing that, as you say, the theatre of cleanliness is something that we have to sort of quite subtly show, but prove that is actually that's happening. I'm going to wrap up in a sec. Any other last trends or things that we need, or ideas, or any last comments? Jack, you go first.
I'm going to be repetitive. We really all need to do this together. And we need to always work. It sounds a little cliche, but we need to all work together to campaign everyone around us to have more confidence.
Yeah, agreed. Tom, last point or trend?
No, I fully concur with that. I think we're a big industry, and I know this phrase gets trotted out the whole time, but it's 1 in 10 people around the world works in tourism in some way, shape, or form, and that's an awful lot of people. And we need that business to come back, not from a selfish point of view, but this is a worldwide issue now, and all got to be banging the drum.
Yeah. And we obviously at TTG we're doing that with our hashtag Save Travel, and obviously around holiday to help out, which has a new campaign we're launching. Well, it's out now, but will be available 2nd to the 8th of November, and more information on that on our website, so we can try and spur some sales and get people booking through the trade. Well, thank you so much, guys, for your time. Tom, for your bearing with us with the text.
Your younger self.
your younger self. How do you know he's not? No, I know he looks slightly different to that now.
Literally 20 years ago.